This is the last official assignment you have to do for SSP17. So by the conclusion of your presentation, essentially, that will be the last assignment that you have. So what we're going to do today, each team has about an hour to present what they have, and then we'll have 30 minutes for questions and answers. We're going to have four judges, and we're going to open the questions from the judges, and then when the judges finish, we can open it to the rest of the group here. So if you notice, when you came in here, we talked about the challenges and the difficulties and how complex was the team projects. We have a group of people that never worked together. We have people from different countries, different disciplines, so much diversity in the group. And eventually, you guys went through all the challenges and came up with amazing processes and amazing product that we'll show today here. So for that, congratulations to all of you guys. I would like to introduce the judges. It's going to be Professor Walter Peters from ISU, Neve Shah, Niall Smith, and myself will be judging the projects today. So with that, we'll start with the first one for this morning. Astropreneurs.
I hadn't planned an I'm going to let them speak for themselves. We're going to show you something very exciting and something that's going to persist, and hopefully you all will be interested in using in the future. So with that, I'll let them start.
Hello. Yes, you in the theater seat. And yes, this is in your head. Because I know what you're thinking. I know that you have questions. Questions like, what opportunities exist for aspiring entrepreneurs in the space industry? And how does one create a space startup from scratch? How does one finance it? What rules and regulations do space entrepreneurs need to follow? What tools exist to help with these difficult tasks? Well, the answers to these questions have indeed arrived.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Charlie, and I am an entrepreneur. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing a revolutionary new tool to the space industry, the Galactic Guide to Space Entrepreneurship, a handbook for creating space startups. One may ask, why is a handbook needed for creating a space startup? Are there not already hundreds of resources available on how to start a company? Well, while creating a startup in any industry is a stressful roller coaster ride on the edge of oblivion, space startup requires entrepreneurs to consider an unusual set of challenges and circumstances. Specifically, to each of the 4 regions in the space industry: terrestrial, suborbital, orbital, and deep space. The galactic guide walks entrepreneurs through these unique characteristics and spatial challenges, aiming to provide a comprehensive set of tools, guidelines, and best practice for creating a space company. So, I would like to invite you, all of you, on a journey. Ladies and gentlemen, are you prepared to become a space entrepreneur? Pack your bag and let the adventure begin.
Good morning. My name is Marshall.
And I'm Gary.
Before we start answering questions about how one goes about becoming an astropreneur, we'd first like to talk about what is an astropreneur. So, like me, I know most of you in this audience today have spent the last couple of months wrapping your heads around subject matter and disciplines that you've likely never before encountered. You've also, hopefully, at least I know for a fact, most of you have been a part of building things that you never imagined you'd build. And hopefully you've made more friends than you ever expected to make. And on the other hand, I know at least for myself, I've been stretched and pulled far outside of my originally preconceived limits, and far outside of my comfort zone. And for most of us, that may take place on a daily basis here. But that's the magic of ISU's SSP program. It's here to teach us that anything really is possible when a group of international, intercultural, and interdisciplinary friends band together, lock themselves in a room, and decide that they can change the world. And that is the foundation of what it means to be an astropreneur. Someone who is not afraid to broaden their horizons, to live outside of their comfort zone most of the time, and to forge relationships with people from every culture and background and discipline. It is these people who are able to solve the problems of our time, to accomplish the impossible, and to change and shape the future.
That's right, Marshall. And as an aspiring space entrepreneur myself, I wanted to share with you all a little bit about my journey to becoming an astropreneur. And in case you're thinking, no, this is just part of the act. No, actually, this is the real deal. This is my own personal experience. So like most of you in the audience, I imagine, I have been fascinated by space since I was a young child. And I've also had a bit of an inventive and entrepreneurial streak that sort of developed as I grew older. And that led me to create my first startup right after I left college. And there you can see me and my 2 co-founders back in the early 2000s. And at that time, however, the space industry, despite the efforts of numerous pioneers and innovators, was still dominated by governments and large government contractors. And so, as I progressed through my career that was completely unrelated to space, I kept an eye out. I wanted to see when would be the moment for me to break into the industry. I never lost sight of that dream to be involved in space, and especially to be involved as an entrepreneur. And I started to notice certain things happening over the last 5 years or so. I almost felt it, an acceleration of activity, an acceleration of companies creating things in the space sector, of investment, and favorable government policies and lower prices driving things forward. And as I looked at the sector, I noticed that the trends seemed to look like an exponential growth trend. And I thought back in my experience, the last time we saw something like that occurring was the last technological revolution, when the personal computer and internet became widely utilized and widely available. And as we all know, a tremendous amount of wealth and opportunity was created out of that transition. And so I started thinking, back then, I didn't have the resources or the knowledge to take advantage of that opportunity. But this time around, I believe I do. And with that recognition, I realized that now was the time. Now was the time for me to make my move. And it was so urgent for me that I had to drop everything. I dropped everything, and I even quit my job. And that was my announcement to my coworkers that I was coming to SSP. So when I came to SSP, I had no idea how it was going to unfold. I came here with this, I guess, a dream and a hope and a belief that I would be able to come here and meet some like-minded co-founders. We would together come up with a brilliant idea, and in just 9 weeks, we could leave here with the beginnings of a new space startup. And so I looked around at the ways to do that, and I saw this team project, and I thought, this is perfect. I can learn exactly how to do that. And not only that, I can actually pass that knowledge on to other people. And as we went through the team project and did our research, we learned a lot about what it takes to start a space startup. Everything from the landscape of the industry, to the panorama of opportunities and challenges, to the pitfalls that you have to avoid, and perhaps most importantly, how to fund it. And so as I was doing my research further, I became very interested in in-space resource utilization and in-space manufacturing. And in fact, this is where me and my new co-founders found our opportunity. But this is a big, big idea, and it's a big challenge. And it's going to require a lot of strong partnerships and significant funding. As I thought, where am I going to find this funding? I'm not a billionaire, so I can't just pull it out of my bank account. But I looked around, and in this research, I discovered the Space Exploration Masters Competition with its Luxembourg Prize, which just so happened to be perfectly aligned with our goals with this startup. And so me and my co-founders are going to actually enter this competition with our idea and put this forward. And with any luck, in the next few months, you guys might see something really cool happen. So as I look back on the last 9 weeks, and I think about everything we've done with this team project, I realize that it has provided a lot of insights for us and really shown us a path on how to create a space startup. And you too can have the same path when you look at our guide. And it has really set us on the path, I believe, to achieving my dream of becoming an astropreneur.
So like Gary said, the space industry is exploding, and opportunities are literally crawling out of the ground, or maybe falling from the sky. Well, regardless, now is the time to enter the space industry. So in our galactic guide, a handbook for astropreneurs, our first chapter is about the panorama of opportunities that actually exist right now in the space sector for you. So to help elaborate on that first chapter, I'd like to invite our friend Helen to the stage.
Hi, I'm Helen, and I'm going to kick off this entrepreneurial adventure with the first of 5 questions. What opportunities exist for aspiring entrepreneurs in the space industry?
And to start to answer that question, I'd like to focus on the revenues of the industry. Last year, it's estimated that there were over $250 billion in revenues in the commercial space sector. And we like to break these, and growing, I might add. And we like to break these revenues down into 4 segments. As Charlie mentioned in the beginning, terrestrial, which is everything that happens on the ground. This is Earth-based activities, ground stations, and also downstream space applications. Things like Google Maps using GPS. Then the next one would be suborbital, which is really any activities that are launched but don't reach Earth's orbit and come back to Earth. This would include launchers and even stratospheric balloons. The next segment is orbital. And this is the one that you're probably most familiar with. This is the rocket launches that SpaceX is doing. This is the International Space Station and all the activity happening there. This is constellations of satellites and anything that happens in orbit, basically. And then the last segment is deep space. This includes things like lunar missions, lunar mining, asteroid mining, interplanetary research, and other missions beyond Earth's orbit.
So speaking of satellites, this is one of the main contributors to the global growth of the space industry. And today there are over 60 countries that are operating satellites and have space activity. In the next 10 years, there will be a dramatic increase in the number of satellites launched into space around the world as more and more countries invest in space technology, big data, and exploration. While the last 50 years saw space dominated by a few superpowers dominating the industry, the future will see space truly becoming a province for all mankind.
And another major driver of this trend is the rapidly increasing investment from the private sector. Private investment is increasing not only in investment, but also in research and development. In fact, over the last couple years, there's been more money invested in private space concerns than there has been in the entire previous history of space.
Private companies are creating new markets in the industry, whether it be Virgin Galactic, who are working on putting private citizens in space, SpaceX on going to Mars, or Planet, who images the entire planet every single day. Made in Space is manufacturing things for the International Space Station. There has never been a better time to start a company in the space industry.
Excuse me, here. This is all good and well, but how does one create a space startup from scratch?
I'm glad you asked that question, and we're here to help with our galactic guide. And to help answer that question, I would like to invite Brian and Hu to the stage.
Good morning. So how does one create a space startup from scratch? For many, beginning this journey is both exciting and terrifying.
But our Galaxy Guide is here to help. The manual business chapter of our handbook is designed for new space entrepreneurs to realize about their startup experiencing and be able to focus more on simpler things in life.
The Galactic Guide introduces entrepreneurs to viable business model for startups. The key elements of the business model canvas are presented in detail with examples from successful space companies. One of those key elements is the value proposition. Planet, for example, is currently offering Earth observation data with much shorter revisit times than any other Earth observation platform. The guide also introduces the minimum viable product method, a way for entrepreneurs to gather feedback of their products early on the startup process. Having a strong business plan can guide a startup in the right direction. It is one of the most important factors when attempting to secure funding. My friends, pay attention. The Galactic Guide is a helping hand for entrepreneurs beginning this process.
With the rapid change in technology and digital resources, space startups must organize for speed, agility, and adaptability to survive in the demanding and competitive space industry. This chapter of our Galactic Guide lists the basic qualities of a space entrepreneur and what he or she should look for when assembling a team. We also introduce 5 major types of organizational structures, along with examples from both established companies and startups. SpaceX is an example for flat organization. At SpaceX, anyone gets to talk to anyone, and the best idea wins, even if that idea comes from an intern. Planet started as a small team with members from different backgrounds. It's an example for flatter organization. Planet encourages its employees to be proactive and collaborative, promoting interdisciplinary communications on every project.
So, space entrepreneurs must understand the importance of branding and marketing. This part helps the company to create value on its brand. Effective branding helps determine everything from its logo and website. For example, Virgin Galactics. They create magic on its logo and website, combining classical elements and futuristic elements to draw to the audience and inspires the future. The Galactic Guide describes the key elements for a startup must consider when creating its own brand and marketing of its products or services. This is most important for companies where intended clients are general public, other businesses, or government entities.
Finally, this chapter of our Galactic Guide explains the importance of effective marketing strategies to the success of a space company, providing helpful insight into aspects of marketing like customer-centered design, product pricing, market research, and communication. Companies like Zero to Infinity, Virgin Galactic, and SpaceX spend time and resources to create powerful photos and video content to describe their products and services. Connecting a company's mission, products, and services to its partners and customers is the heartbeat of any company. Mastering these concepts is essential for the sustainability, viability, and future development.
Wait a minute. So all this talk is great, but I mean, you're talking, how do you finance a space startup? I mean, you're making it sound it's like so easy.
Hey, where are you from? That's a great question. I'm glad you asked. To answer that question, I'd like to invite Casper and Humphrey to the stage.
As an entrepreneur, do you want to keep your business plan as a good dream in the garage forever? Absolutely not. You will need money that can help you make your dream come true. Ideally, someone else's money. But how can we get these resources out of the blue?
Well, our Galactic Guidebook has all of those answers and provides the aspiring entrepreneurs with fundamental knowledge about the various sources of funding that exist and how a space startup company can plan for its financial future. So, as Hongfei just said, ideally you should be able to acquire professional investors, but putting down your own money first is generally a good way to start as well. But understanding the types of fundraising rounds and the kind of investors that you should pursue at different stages of the startup can be a challenge to the aspiring entrepreneur. That is why in the Money Matters chapter of our guidebook, we provide you with a complete disambiguation of all of the various stages of a startup, as well as all of the different financing rounds.
Yes, but even when you get to that point, your company may need additional funding because we dream big. Our handbook not only offers you standard fundraising approaches, it also offers you all kinds of other funding sources you can pursue.
Well, that's right. And I mean, not only do all startups and all industries differ, location matters too. I mean, think about it. If you were going to start a company that puts objects into the geostationary orbit, I mean, you have so many different places that you can do that. You have so many different countries where you can try to forge key partnerships. I mean, we all know that, geo runs parallel to the equator, and, if you were to try to acquire partnerships in the French Guiana, for example, that would give you an immense geographic advantage. Luxembourg, as another example, has, as it was mentioned before, has all these incredible government support programs.
Yes, the same goes for China. We have so many government support programs and space incubators that can help you develop your space idea from zero to hero.
That's right.
Yes.
So for this exact reason, in the Money Matters chapter of our Galactic Guidebook, we provide you with a comprehensive global heat map, which outlines all of the different locations around the world where you can choose to start your company and where the ecosystem is most suited for your particular needs.
But wait, please wait. Yeah, I'm here. Under the any laws and regulations that a space entrepreneur needed to follow, I heard that I could own the moon.
Well, you definitely cannot own the moon. I don't know who told you that. But an aspiring entrepreneur must face a plethora of legal challenges and considerations when starting their own space venture. So to explain and to elaborate on that further, I would like to invite Emmeline and Timo to the stage.
Contrary to popular belief, there are laws governing space activities and the companies in general. And it is very important that space entrepreneurs become educated in this area so as to ensure the safety and the sustainability of the space industry.
When it comes to laws and regulations in space, many people would likely associate the authorities with this guy. However, the Galactic Guide is here to show you and space entrepreneurs that the regulatory bodies that govern space activities actually are more like this guy. That's not so bad, right?
To help space entrepreneurs get started, we created a timeline based on the three life cycles of a space company. The early stage, when a startup develops its initial idea. The middle stage is when the startup gathers all the resources necessary to implement the idea. And the late stage, when the startups will enter the markets. Based on these three phase cycle, we will explain you the laws and regulations that apply to your space company. And for example, the corporate structure, the intellectual property, space law, and export control.
For corporate structure, we provide suitable environment or suitable incorporation types for space startups and how to build a secure legal environment with co-founders, customers, and employees.
Also, if you're building your company on a revolutionary idea or a technical invention, you should start considering the intellectual property from the very beginning when you're drafting your business plan. And our Galactic Guide provides all the fundamentals and the strategies for your space company and why intellectual property is critical for your company.
We also provide information on key elements of export control, such as which controls apply to which activities, and how do these controls impact startups. To help you understand which export control regulations might apply to your specific operation, we have created an export control flowchart. Going through the flowchart, you will go through all the necessary steps that will indicate whether or not you will require an export control license.
Wait, we don't expect you to read this flowchart. It will be available in the handbook and in the web tool. But why is it important? The US export control regulation rely on extraterritoriality. What does it mean? It means that the US, if you're using a US item, the US export regulation apply outside of the physical border of the United States. And this flowchart explains you the key question for a space entrepreneur in the within 3 phases. And in the phase 1, you will be able to know what is the supply phase and is the supplier company on the American territory, or are you using a US personnel? Phase 2 is related to the classification and helps you determine whether you're using a military or civil or dual use item and which export license is required. And last, the phase 3 is about how you can know if you're able to re-export your item in another country. But this is just one example in one subsection of the handbook. So just imagine how much information you will be able to find reading the Galactic Guide. And last but not least, our Galactic Guide introduces you the fundamentals of space law and why it impacts your business. So, for example, it could be the national authorization, liability, registration, frequency management, or remote sensing, because these are the legal foundations upon which all space activities are conducted.
Hey, hold on. All this information is making my head spin, but I still want to know that is there any tools available that could help our space entrepreneurs to manage these different tasks?
Yes, indeed, there are many tools out there, many more than you can imagine. And in fact, the Galactic Guide includes some of these tools that help you build and manage your company and its tasks. But I'm not an expert on it, so I would like to invite Mike from the Earth and Chandra to elaborate further on this.
The Galactic Guide is packed full of helpful tools. We made sure we want to pack it full of useful tools, links, and as well as resources to help the space entrepreneur to make the most difficult decisions possible, or to have the tools possible to make those difficult decisions. And in addition, it provides them communication to contact with communities, with entities, as well as other partners. And lastly, in addition, it also provides them the necessary tools to create a space startup company.
To accomplish this task, we provide entrepreneurs host of information on startup development programs, as well as treasure map of resources for everything, from legal aid to financial sources. No, this handbook won't open a company for you, but it will definitely make your job easier.
The handbook is packed full of, there's lots of programs that's available. And these programs are available through two that come to the top of mind. One is through ESA, the Space Masters Program. You heard Gary speak about that earlier. And also, ESA also has an incubation program as well. And NASA has two programs designed just for small businesses. One for transfer of technology, and the other one for innovation. So these tools are definitely needed and can be usefully used to help the entrepreneur in the space of startup companies.
Additionally, we also provide treasure map of tools which consist of links of extensive online tools which can be used for dealing difficult tasks, maybe from legal expert to managing human resources to venture capital funding and so on.
Yeah, okay, but how can entrepreneurs take these revolutionary tools with them to the stars? How can we keep this tool alive for the years to come? Also, I don't read books, just the internet.
Thankful for your question. We have actually adopted this Galactic Guide for the Millennium Generation in the form of a web tool, astropreneurs.space. And today we are going to launch it officially for the entire world.
And the slide you see here is just for your look. We know that it's difficult to see, but you can find this in the Galactic Guidebook. And ladies and gentlemen and ladies, I need your help here to help me launch this product of passion, of hard work, made with teamwork. Help me, get your hands together, everyone. Let's welcome in the Astropreneurs, the Astropreneurs! Woo, the Astropreneurs!
Good morning, I'm Paula.
Good morning, and I'm Pedro.
And today we're officially launching our web tool, www.astropreneurs.space, because Google hasn't indexed it yet, but it is online as we speak, and you will be able to see all the content that I will now present to you. The tool that you see online is a minimum viable product, which means that we have a lot of different posts of different type, of different tone, and we will use this to see what our readers find most useful and engaging and interesting. On the home page, you will find a list of all the resources that we currently have available. It reflects the structure of the handbook that you've seen, the panorama of opportunities, mind your business, money matters, rules of the game, inspiration, and treasure map. But it's not a copy-paste of the handbook online. This web tool is complementary and has original content, which is why we also have the handbook available on the web tool for you to download, as well as the executive summary. So let's talk about the content. We started off with a survey to space entrepreneurs to find out what they find most interesting, what they needed to know. And they told us funding and business plans and models were actually the most important topics. This is what we concentrated on. Each page actually has an introduction and then several posts. For example, in the Money Matters section, we actually have a post on the elevator pitch, what it is, why it's important, and also a good video to create the best possible elevator pitch, or should I say, space elevator pitch. We also have an exclusive interview with Jörg Kreisel, who has more than 30 years of experience in space technology transfer, venture capital fund management, and creating deal flow for Astropreneurs. And so he details the VC and early stage equity landscape, as well as how to navigate it and how to be sure to get better funding. All right, so we're also very proud of our treasure map. As we mentioned before, this connects actually all the resources that we found in 2 months of TP work. They are accelerators, incubators, grant programs, apps, anything you need to get the job done, all organized, described, and linked, ready for your use. We also know that space entrepreneurs aren't all the same, so we want everyone to have the information they need right at their fingertips. That's where our search function comes in. You can search for terrestrial, suborbital, or orbital information. You can search for specific countries or regions, or even keywords such as funding, so that you can find additional resources that we have on this topic in different parts of the web tool, as you see here. So, for example, in the Money Matters section, we actually have another article that details the entire funding cycle from the initial phases, so the seed funding, all the way up to the exit, and tells you how the different phases work together. We also have a editorial plan, which means that we will be able to create new original content every week, all year round. Some things to look forward to: we will have the Astropreneurs Guide to the IAC, detailing all the paper sessions and the interesting events you can attend to make the most of your Adelaide experience as an entrepreneur. We also have ideas to publish on how to pitch to investors with an actual downloadable PowerPoint template of an investor pitch. We would also like to talk about our partnership section, where of course we talk currently about ISU, who not only brought us here together to start this great project, but is also hosting our web tool. And this brings me to, first of all, thank Joël Herman and Sébastien Bessa for their support during these last few weeks, but also to talk about everything we've done in the back end of this tool, from the selection of the optimal domain name, to the exploration of Wix, Weebly, and WordPress hosting platforms, ultimately choosing the latter, to the definition of all the requirements that we had for our web tool in the present and in the future in order to select the optimal template that we needed, the definition of the website structure, the examination of keywords that we could use to improve the search engine optimization of our tool, and the social media channels. And we actually launched a countdown campaign, which in 5 days has gotten up to around 150 followers on Twitter. At Astropreneurs HQ is our Twitter handle, so please do follow us there. The About Us section talks about our great team and our SSP experience in launching this tool. We've also got a Contact Us section,
where we encourage people to submit ideas for new posts, tell us if they would like to contribute, and tell us about their entrepreneurial story. So this is Astropreneurs.space, and after all the love and effort that we've poured into this tool, we want it to last forever. So Pedro's going to tell you how we're achieving that.
Thank you so much, Paola. So as you understood by now, with Astropreneurs.space, we are not only calling ourselves Astropreneurs. We are becoming Astropreneurs. So we are immensely proud to go on with this adventure way beyond SSP 2017. We talked with space entrepreneurs, and we believe Astropreneurs.space will be the go-to resource for them. But to make this happen, we need to look into the future and plan it accordingly. We made Astropreneurs.space to be a community-built platform in the future. Currently, we have our incredible team of volunteers fully in charge of it. Also, we believe in giving back to this community. This is the core of this project. Therefore, we envision ourselves in the future as a non-profit organization, something that has to be naturally studied and iterated with our partners, ISU. So our initial funding will be twofold. We'll be backed on donations, followed by a crowdfunding campaign, which will allow us to take Astropreneurs.space to the masses. So this will allow us to implement our trial matchmaking tool. What are we talking about with matchmaking tool? Well, for sure it won't be an app where you go swiping right and left while looking at selfies. That's done, it's not our market. What we are talking about here is making, let's say, space lawyers, space engineering experts, incubator experts, easily accessible to the space entrepreneur. So all the resources that matter in one single spot. We believe this to be a one-of-a-kind value proposition in the space community. For our next stage, upon incorporation, we'll keep it going for growth and financial sustainability. We'll be able to apply for grants and expect our initial customer-based revenue. How is this coming to be? We have 3 ways to make it happen. First, general advertisement on the website. The moment we build traction, we'll be able to get revenue out of this traction with general advertisement. Premium status for resource providers that pay us to have this status. So this will allow them to have on-page highlights, further advertisement, tailored posts. And finally, charges for successful match that we make between entrepreneurs and the resources providers. At this stage, we expect to have a very well-structured organization based on a management team with the support of what we are calling topic curators, so experts on their field that will give further credibility and support in our content generation, as well as our team of volunteers. As we speak, we are with ongoing conversations to have a very relevant board of advisors with us, and we believe soon enough we'll be able to tell you more news on that topic. Finally, our last stage, as we envision it, imply us to act directly and support directly new space startups. So we built the tool, we gathered the information, we made the resources available, we have a community. The next natural step is to be an online space incubator. Again, we believe this to be a one-of-a-kind value proposition in the space community. So we expect you, or many of you in the audience, the adventurers, to be with us in that future. But that future starts now. That's our online page is there.
Thanks, Pedro. All right, so now we have shown you our wonderful handbook and astropreneurs.space. We want you to join in the adventure with us.
And to celebrate today's launch, we want to give you, every single one of you, free access to the Galactic Guide of Space Entrepreneurship. Let's go, Astropreneurs!
Thank you all so much. We would like to open it up for questions.
Judges?
Yes, hello, Steve Brody from ISU. I am very, very excited about your project and thank you for this stimulating presentation. One thing that has visibly propelled the commercial space industry is a number of very highly visible, very charismatic billionaires. And we all know our favorite, perhaps. To what extent do you feel that there is perhaps too much reliance, either in the media or in the whole industry, on such individuals? What would happen if one or more of these very highly visible billionaires who are doing such incredible things, if they dramatically lose money, or dramatically lose interest, or dramatically lose whatever, but disappear from the scene? How might that affect? Have you considered that?
That's a great question. Marshall, would you like to answer that?
I may be overly an optimist, but like many people in this room, I look up to some of these individuals we have in our mind. I love what they're doing, and I would love to be a part of it one day. But something that I really believe in the space industry specifically, maybe something that's unique from other industries, is that I firmly believe that if any one of those guys threw in the towel and gave up, that information, that struggle, that journey would be picked up in an instant by hundreds, if not thousands, of other people who are all trying to do the same thing. Something cool about the space industry is that we're all pretty connected. We all are passionate about what everyone else is doing. We're not trying to cut each other's heads off. We're typically trying to work in cooperation, which is what our team project was founded on, getting people all over the world connected to help further develop the space industry. Whether you're the intern or the billionaire, we all have something to offer, and I believe that's a really important aspect of our commercial space industry.
Paula, would you like to elaborate?
I would just like to point out that we actually discussed this also in our interview to Jörg Kreisel, and he does say that, for example, these high visibility cases, of course, are pulling, let's say, their weight in terms of the funding available, but they're also kickstarting a whole community, for example, of space angels who have now started to invest. Of course, there's always the possibility of there being a bubble and it bursting, but this is not an obvious outcome, and we hope that it won't be the case.
Any other questions from the judges? Yeah, Neve.
Hey, great presentation.
in terms of like going forward and managing your web tool, how have you thought about how you're going to actually break that down when there's so many of you involved over the next year to 18 months?
Absolutely. Pedro?
Okay, so our volunteering team is not at this stage the whole TP team, so it's a smaller group because, as you said and referred very well, we need to grow slowly and make sure the structure is there rather than just trying to do everything at the same time, otherwise we run the risk to crash. So with this in mind, we have a limited team, so that's also why we didn't open volunteers externally to the TP at this stage. That will likely come in the future, so we want to create a larger network, ideally with elements from different continents, different countries that have different perspectives on the space industry, and this is very relevant. And so we have a small team at this stage, and with the funding we are expecting to receive, initially by donations at the crowdfunding efforts, we expect to have the possibility to have people more dedicated to the project, not only as a part-time volunteering project, and with this support the full development of a larger team, namely on the management side and also on IT side, which is quite relevant. And by experience from the last 3 weeks, very difficult. And therefore, we have a sustained growth step in terms of structure. The first 6 months will be very, very important in assessing as well the best paths to go. That's why we don't intend to even incorporate before that, because we have a few things to figure out still. I hope this answers your question. Thank you.
Thank you also for my part. Very interesting presentation. I also read your report with interest, and I have 2 questions. One was not obvious from the report, and you showed it again. I'm still puzzled. You show the investment in 2015 with the different sources and in 2016. And I'm very, very surprised that some of the investment sources have obviously disappeared in 2016. I looked at the PAI, that is a private equity investment 300. There were quite a lot in 2016. So why is private equity fallen to 0 between 2015 and 2016? Or are these 2 different charts that you proposed?
Okay, thank you for your question. Fabiana?
Thank you for your question. Actually, those graphs are, the figures in this graph are taken from the Tari report, the price tag. So it's, as is said in the caption, they are just the number they are providing in their last report. There's a chart, they made a chart, we transform it in a pie chart, but it's the same. So we don't really know why disappear, but for the Bryce report, there's no number available for those 2 categories that disappeared. So we didn't want to make up money or numbers, so we just took and cited the source. So I hope I answered your question.
Yes, but that brings me to, and I knew you were going to give that answer, that gives me to a hint. I think you should always put the source, then you would have been protected. Now it looked like it was your.
Okay, in the presentation.
Yeah,
okay,
presentation
in the report
just,
there is
just
in the presentation.
Yeah.
No.
In the report it is, but not here. So now you make yourself vulnerable to this sort of questions, which you. Now the second thing is a little bit like my colleague is, so you're developing a lot of recommendations to people on the business plan. If I look at a very high level at your business plan, I think your value of the debt will be during phase 3. Because you're still investing in the team and you are expecting already some customer revenue while you are still investing. So I am a bit worried about the second half of 2018, beginning of 2019. How do you get out of that valley of the debt? Crowdfunding, okay. Unless you have equity crowdfunding in mind, which I don't think you have, a little bit of sponsorship, yes, you can keep the seed money, you can keep your 70, 80,000, which you probably need. Now, how do you get out of this? Because you will not have a customer base yet at the end of 2018. So how do you get out of your, what you described nicely yourself, your valley of the dead? Are you going to die or?
All right, thank you. Pedro?
So our current and near-term expected running costs are very, very low. Of course, by the stage you're referring to, we expect to have already a team that is dedicated to the project, still not necessarily full-time, and we will only have personal expenses on the management team. So the curators will still be ad hoc volunteers. We referred them as experts, so to give credibility to our tool, but they will still functioning on a volunteer base. That's why we only refer to full employees at stage 4. Only there when we have established revenue, not when we have initial customer revenue. We have considered to have, okay, fully paid employees. I gave that idea of the structure at stage 3 to show the audience naturally that we have in mind the aspect of the internal organization. But in terms of costs coming from that organization, still on stage 3, we only expect to have small costs allocated to a management team that will have to allocate it mostly on IT support, probably to have better design, better web graphic design, and to manage the project. All the rest will still be based on volunteers. And we have examples on the space community like the SGAC that run mostly on a volunteer base, and they are very successful, and they have 1-2 people being paid, and the organization is very, very successful. So at stage 3, it would be something similar we'll be looking at. So I don't believe we'll be running in the valley of that.
Okay, I'm looking forward to, in a few years, to see how you come out of that one. Thank you very much.
Paolo, did you want to elaborate as well?
I also wanted to say, first of all, it's a question of priorities, and we've made it very clear that our first priority will be always investing in the tool. Our second priority will be remunerating the people as we can who are working on it. And the other thing is we also talked about revenue from advertisement, and if you do get a good community together with a consistent daily, weekly number of page views, there can be some money coming in from there as well. So that could be initial revenue even before the matchmaking tool arrives, and that can start to slowly fuel our tech development into the matchmaking that then will get the real revenue on board.
Any questions from the audience?
I have 3 questions, but they're short, don't worry. But before that, I'd like to appreciate the depth and the value of the work that you put out there. As an entrepreneur with my startup in California, it was very interesting to see how you demonstrated some of the challenges that I personally encountered as I was building my business. So my first question is, correct me if I'm wrong, are you offering basically a consultation, or do you have any other services, or can you describe that first, and then I'll ask my second and third question.
Are you speaking specifically for the web consultation on the web tool?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, Pedro.
I'm talking way more than what I was expecting. So at this stage, no. This would be the stage 4. This will be the stage 4 of our activity. Okay. When we call ourselves, and we will be an online space incubator there, we'll be providing what you're saying. Until then, we'll be an informational tool to start with. So you will be able to get information on the web tool from us, as you would get on a newspaper or on a blog. So the content is closed, you can go and check it. in the near midterm, you'll be able to identify with our matchmaking feature resources and resource providers that might be useful for you, okay? But we are not guiding you specifically in the process. That will be in the online incubation stage.
So do you require that the clients create a like a profile in your website? Is that how
Yes,
it works?
exactly. That feature is not currently available.
Okay.
It will be implemented in the future as the base of our community. So you will have entrepreneurs profiles and resource providers profiles, and we will establish the matchmaking between them.
Very good. My second question. So do you all have access to the website? Who maintains the website? I mean, do you all have a say in your
We
website?
put out a call for volunteers during the TP work. We have a group of 11 people who volunteered. The rest understand that they have other things to do, and so they will support us, of course, but won't be part of the actual management group. We will have people more on the IT front, people a bit more on the management and coordination, and people on content creation.
But everybody benefits equally, regardless of their position.
I mean, for now we're envisioning a non-profit, so we're not thinking of splitting shares or you know dividends or whatever. So it's a the idea is to create a community-driven tool
Very
that
good.
gives back to the community and to the people who actually work on it eventually.
Awesome. So my third question, is the door open for future memberships? Do you accept like like colleagues in the future? For those who are interested, or is it closed? It's a closed society.
So as I explained to NIF, at this stage is a closed environment for volunteers, as we are creating a solid structure around what we've done in the TP. In the near midterm, we want to open it, and we expect you to join.
All
Now
right.
you have been, as Annette says very well, you've just been voluntold, sir. So expect to be reached by us in the future, so we can get your support. And there will be many ways to do it. We'll have need for IT experts. We'll have need for content generators, people to establish contacts. So it will be there, and when it is, you'll know about it.
Well, I wish you best of luck. for the
Thank you very
future.
much.
Thank you.
Looks like we have a new astropreneur here.
Anybody else from the audience?
Thank you. Thank you so much, Astropreneurs. My question to you all is, this new tool you're providing, do you think it's going to work across board, like globally? So irrespective of where you're from or what you want to do in the space sector, does it work? Will it work? I mean, the tools you're providing. Thank you.
Thank you, Fumi. Helen?
So one of the unique things about our team and about ISU is the fact that the founders of this project really are from all over the world and who come from a lot of different backgrounds. And because of this diversity in the team, there's also diversity in our tool. And this can be seen in the content that is already on the website. So we have a fantastic blog post about space startups in China. We have things about the business incubators. So it's the content that's there is already very diverse, and because our volunteer group is also diverse, it will continue to support and be relevant for people both from different countries and from different parts of the space sector.
Any other questions?
Thank you very much for the presentation. Very inspiring me a lot. So I came up with an idea also during now. I don't know if the group had the idea to transform this in an app and put this in the Google Store for 99 cents. So put more kind of services to can be a business, can be also revenue for the group. So this is my idea. Okay?
Thank you so much for your suggestion. I don't know if we've thought about that, but
So she wants a percentage, I must.
yeah. Pedro, did you want to comment, or thank you. We'll take note. Yeah, absolutely.
So that's indeed a possibility, and thank you for giving us that idea. What we need to take care with, especially at this early stage, is the trade-off between the effort we would need to do something like that and the resources we have and the structure we have defined. So we do not envision it for now. It's something that we will consider. It's naturally a good idea, and these first 6 months will allow for a lot more to be thought and processed internally, so we can figure out if we can actually make that happen. Thank you.
Steve?
Yes. Let's see. So thank you again for the opportunity to ask one more question. So your team has epitomized some of the best values of ISU and its founders: cooperation and facilitation to move forward the space enterprise. And then it comes down to hard reality and human nature and the desire for competition, accumulating wealth, etc. What considerations have you given to when this starts to become very real, to things like non-disclosure agreements, intellectual property protection? Do you see that you will be, this tool, this organization, this idea will be able to survive when there isn't enough perhaps for all to become billionaires and the pressures of competition start to tug at this idea of yours?
Paula?
So first of all, I'd like to comment on the intellectual property. That's something we take very seriously, and so we have started, first of all, discussions with ISU, because this is the first time something like this is done, and we want to make sure that we have everything in place to understand, how we can divide it, what we can do. But we've also, from the beginning, considered this as a way to give back. So I don't think anyone here has ever talked about becoming a billionaire out of Astropreneurs.space. The idea is to create something that gives back to the community that we can all learn from. And that's why we're talking more about a nonprofit at this stage, which would also probably simplify a lot of the intellectual property issues. We will take 6 months to consider all the options, but that's what we have right now going forward.
Just to clarify briefly, I was thinking not so much from members of the team, but that those who would see themselves as customers of the service and the competition that might, if I were an entrepreneur and I wish to use your service, but now I might worry that I am perhaps revealing or sharing certain information that this entrepreneur who now knows that I am going after a share of the industry that she's interested in, how would your organization deal with the fact that we may be fighting for competition and we both want to use your resources?
Paula, you take it.
I mean, for sure we need to consider this aspect. I think that any entrepreneur nowadays is very accustomed to going to pitch competitions, to going to talk to investors, and so there is some disclosure that is going to happen. Of course, we need to manage it carefully, but since we will have the resources being part of our community and not just the Astropreneurs, we can create a bilateral communication channels for sure. where they can actually exchange as much information as they want and potentially just keep a minimum of information available for everyone to see. Because anyway, for startups, being a little bit public about what they're going to do also helps to attract resources. And actually in the survey, what we've seen is that many people actually said, I would have needed technical resources. So actually recruitment of people who know about the space sector, who are engineers, who are experts, and you find them. How do you find them? By telling them about your idea and convincing them that they need to come to work for you.
Thank you. Well, great job on putting together. You have a question first?
No, I just want to say some things and then I close it out.
No, I'm not. Yeah, go ahead.
When we started, Nora and I and our TA, Jacopo, we had this vague idea of what this possibility could be. But boy, a hard-working group of talented people turned it into something really real. I just want to thank them. Thanks.
Oh, great. So great job in putting together this thing here. And just want to say some comments. I think this is the first time also we put together a web page to come across with the manual, with the product. So the space industry, the components to enable you to be participant in the space industry are increasing substantially. Technology is increasing, cost and access to space is becoming cheaper and cheaper. So you're going to see a lot of new entrants and new startups coming into the market. So this is perfect timing. The only thing also is this is an environment that's very dynamic. It's changing substantially and moving forward very fast. So for this tool to be successful, it depends on how much updates are you doing and how much keeping up with the market you're doing with that. And because of this, it's not going to be the only product. There's going to be other people coming up with similar tools, so you need to highlight and emphasize on the unique value proposition you're bringing to the market. So that's going to be essential as well. Even if you're successful, if you look at the Netflix model as well, successful, you need to keep adapting and changing and be ahead of the competition to keep up becoming the world-leading tool for space entrepreneurs. And the last thing I had also about the revenues you had from customers, that depends on customer acquisition cost, and there's going to be substantial costs initially to balance that up, because the advertisements will not be feasible unless you have substantial number of customers, and there is a lot of cost to acquire the customers, so you have to balance these things up. But in general, excellent job. Thank you, everyone, and congratulations.
Thank you, Omar. There's one more thing I would like to add to close our presentation. We need your support, all of you, because your questions, your ideas can actually make us make our tools more richer, more complete. Thank you.